PlayStation 5 sales numbers have been revealed since the launch of the system, and to the surprise of no one, the system is off to a very hot start. EA made some big announcements about some upcoming and new games. DLC is finally coming to the Outer Worlds on the Nintendo Switch along with something extra, and finally it appears that some surprise games are coming to the Nintendo Switch starting in the summer of 2021. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, welcome! Be sure to hit that subscribe button and be sure to like the video. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games. So November of 2020 was obviously a very big month for the world of video games because the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S both launched in North America. And obviously this was a big deal. Everyone loves new hardware. I love new hardware. I ended up buying both a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Series X, but a lot of people were anticipating that the PlayStation 5 was going to be going off to a very hot start. Obviously this item was in a lot more demand than something like the Xbox Series X were. They both were in a bit of a demand, but it seemed like the PlayStation 5 was the more popular system, and now these numbers are pretty much confirming that the PlayStation 5 is yet another success for Sony. 4.5 million units sold in the last quarter of 2020, meaning roughly since the launch of the system until December 31st. Now, these numbers are comparable to the PlayStation 4 when that system first launched, but of course, you gotta remember, there's a lot more scalping going on with this system than there was with the PlayStation 4. You know, people are trying to buy up these systems and then sell them at premium prices. It's very hard to get these systems, and you have to factor in that you can't really just walk into a store and pick up a PlayStation 5 where you could do something like that with a PlayStation 4. So the demand for this system is very high. Now, both of the PlayStation 5 systems, the all-digital system and the physical edition, which is the one that I recommend you pick up, are actually being sold at a loss. This was confirmed by Sony. However, with that even being the case, the last quarter for the PlayStation brand was actually the most profitable that they've ever had, and it was not because of PlayStation 4 sales, because that was down 77%. So obviously things are able to offset when it comes to hardware being sold at a loss, especially when you have things like accessories and, more importantly, software. I'm sure a game like Spider-Man Miles Morales and of course Demon's Souls has sold very, very well for Sony, and of course these were games that you could only get on a Sony platform, and it just kind of goes to show you that first-party exclusives are an important thing, because I feel like if the Xbox brand had some big first-party exclusives at the launch of the system, they would be reporting similar things from this. Now, Xbox has said that they are happy with the launch of the Xbox Series X, and they gave some percentages, but no sort of concrete number. So 4.5 million sold in the last quarter of 2020 for the PlayStation 5 is obviously a very impressive number. I'm sure some of those are to scalpers. I'm sure a lot of those are to scalpers, but considering the economic climate and the fact that you can't just walk into a store to pick up a PlayStation 5, it's obviously a very positive sign for Sony. And let's be realistic, the games that people want, games like God of War, Ratchet and Clank, Gran Turismo 7, haven't even hit yet for the system. So I think the PlayStation 5 is going to be yet another runaway success for Sony. I think they're going to do very positive in the video game marketplace, and the more video games sell, the better it is for everyone involved. So you should be happy about this. Yesterday, we got a couple announcements from EA. Yes, I know, it's EA. Everyone hates EA. I hate EA to some sort of extent, but I still think they have some decent games. Like, you can look beyond the company as a whole and just look at the individual games and get some enjoyment from these games. And there are two things I want to highlight that were announced yesterday from EA. The first is we finally have a release date for Apex Legends on the Nintendo Switch, but it wasn't yesterday. A lot of people thought it was going to be yesterday, myself included, because the Apex Legends of Japan YouTube account actually put that the Nintendo Switch version was coming out on February 3rd, and then that was removed. But obviously the yesterday came and went and the game didn't release, but EA did say that the game will be coming to the Nintendo Switch on March 9th. Now, launching alongside of the game on the Nintendo Switch is actually a Power A themed Apex Legends controller. So EA seems to be sort of going a bit all in on this game. Obviously, if you're doing a special controller for it as well, you do have some confidence in it, and I do think they should have confidence in the Nintendo Switch version of Apex Legends because of the fact that it was confirmed that Panic Button is working on this game. Now, Panic Button, if you're a Nintendo Switch owner, this is probably one of your favorite companies. I mean, games like Warframe, Doom Eternal, it's like they know how to do these sort of games on the Nintendo Switch, and I definitely think that Apex Legends is going to come out as a quality version of the game. Sure, it probably won't look as good as the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One versions of the game, but I think the game is in very good hands, and considering this is a free-to-play game, I'm definitely going to check it out once again fan on the Nintendo Switch. I'm very curious to see how this game will end up and in terms of performance and things like that. So definitely a game to look out for on March 9th. Another big thing from EA was the Mass Effect Legendary Edition was announced for the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series family of systems, and of course the PC. Now this is the Mass Effect trilogy, the 3 good games in the series. Yes, Mass Effect 3 is a good game. People don't like it. You know what? Hot take. Mass Effect 3 is the only game that I played to completion in the Mass Effect series. I watched my housemate beat Mass Effect 1 and 2, but Mass Effect 3 is the only game that I beat, and I really enjoyed that game, so stop dissing it because I think it was a great game. And this game is of course a part of the trilogy. All the DLC from Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 will be included in this edition as well, and of course they are sprucing up the visuals. That's going to be the main thing with this game, is increased visuals on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. So it's going to be a very pretty looking game. It was a gorgeous looking game way back in the day, and definitely a fun action RPG in a sci-fi universe. So I think this is a welcome addition for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. Any more games, any new games that are coming out on these systems are always things worth talking about because it's a little bit dry right now for these systems. Now, as far as the Nintendo Switch version of the game, EA actually has not ruled that out. It would be something that would come later down the line, much like every EA game that comes to the Nintendo Switch, but I think that would be a cool thing because you'd have portable Mass Effect. Like, that sounds very attractive to me. Obviously, once again, it wouldn't look as good as the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X editions of the game, but these are games that were built on the Xbox 360, so it's not like, you know, you would have to do a whole bunch of stuff to make it look nice and crisp on the Nintendo Switch. So we got that, we got Apex Legends, and they're actually bringing back NCAA football, but it's not going to have any of the players or teams or licensing or anything like that because I guess they don't want to pay the college athletes. So some interesting announcements from EA. Let me know in the comment section down below if you plan on checking out Apex Legends or the Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Next up, a game that I caught a bit of heat for liking on the Nintendo Switch was The Outer Worlds. And you know what? I don't care! Yes, the graphics of the game were not that great, but the gameplay was great, and in my world, gameplay is more important than graphics. You can have the prettiest looking game in the world, but if it plays like crap, like, who cares? If you're not having fun with the game, who cares? Now, of course, since then, we've gotten subsequent patches for The Outer Worlds on the Nintendo Switch that do improve the visuals, especially in handheld mode. Well, now, the Peril on Gorgon DLC that, of course, released for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One versions of The Outer Worlds is now confirmed to be coming to the Nintendo Switch, and is actually coming out next week on February 10th. It of course expands upon the original game by adding in new areas, new enemies, new storylines, new weapons, a lot of cool stuff. The level cap is also removed, which if you played The Outer Worlds, you probably got to the level cap very quickly. I thought that was kind of weird about the game, but I digress. Still a fantastic game, no matter what platform you play it on. But the Nintendo Switch version is actually getting an update today on February 3rd that does things like improve the textures on the Nintendo Switch version of the game. Obviously, the textures were one of the biggest weaknesses of the Nintendo Switch version of the game, but since then they have done subsequent patches to make the game look better, and I really think it's a very awesome game. It's an experience that you can't really get on the Nintendo Switch, that sort of Fallout style experience, because this is the only game that really offers it. So you get a new free patch that came out today, and that DLC will be coming out on February 10th for the Nintendo Switch, and I'm probably going to check it out because I haven't checked it out on the other platforms. Now, sort of parlaying into that is the final story we have going on. Now, Virtuos is the company that brought The Outer Worlds to the Nintendo Switch. They have done other games like, of course, BioShock, Starlink, Dark Souls on the Nintendo Switch, so they're pretty much up there with companies like Panic Button and Saber Interactive as far as port machines for the Nintendo Switch, bringing over games to the Nintendo Switch that maybe aren't a priority for the main company making them, but there is a demand for a style of game like this on the system. Well, Virtuos actually had a very interesting interview recently, and there's a lot of things I sort of want to dig into with this interview. The managing director for Virtuos was basically talking about the Nintendo Switch and how they enjoy bringing games over to the Switch that, of course, probably wouldn't have come otherwise. A game like BioShock being alongside of Mario, it's kind of an interesting dynamic. And one of the things that was said in this interview was the following. This can be credited to Nintendo's new approach to working with third parties and their desire to make the Switch a welcoming home to developers of all shapes and sizes. We've been able to make good use of Nintendo's toolkits to make the games look and run great on their hardware, and we are excited about new projects on the horizon for this summer and beyond. There's plenty more to come from the Nintendo Switch family. So right then and there, you're taking away two things from this statement. There's some sort of surprise port coming to us from Virtuos to the Nintendo Switch this summer. Obviously, there are going to be more games beyond that, but this is a game that we don't know anything about. And if it's coming out this summer, I mean, summer's what, 5-6 months away at this point in time. It's obviously going to be something very interesting and a surprise game because, well, we don't really know about it right now. Now, what could this game potentially be? We don't know. And I mean, when you look at Virtuos's library of games, it's obviously a very diverse portfolio. They've worked with a whole bunch of different companies, but if I want to recommend a game, it's going to be the Batman Arkham trilogy. The fact that this is not on the Nintendo Switch is ridiculous in my opinion, and Virtuos has worked on Batman Arkham Knight on the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, so they know how the engine works for that game. Obviously, it used the same engine that the other Arkham games did, but it was a bit more enhanced for the new systems. I don't even care if they don't put Arkham Knight in this collection of games. Just give me Asylum, City, and Origins on the Nintendo Switch. You've worked on Batman games before. You are a port machine, and this is a game that would be very, very well received on the Nintendo Switch. But you also have to look at another interesting thing that was said there. The Switch family of systems. Now, does anyone really refer to the Nintendo Switch as a family of systems? Like, yes, you have the Switch and you have the Switch Lite, but is it really a family? Like, that just seems like a couple, you know? That just seems like a gathering of two individuals. Does this mean that another Nintendo Switch system could be releasing in 2021? Should we put on our tinfoil hats for the Switch Pro? Like, I was looking for tinfoil on my desk, but there is no tinfoil, but there is the crushed can from Balan Wonderworld that just really crushed my spirits. But it's definitely interesting to see them say the Switch family because nobody really talks about it that way. You just say the Nintendo Switch because of the fact that the Switch and the Switch Lite are essentially the same thing. It's just that you can't plug the Switch Lite into your television. So some interesting stuff here, but I think it's going to be an interesting surprise to see what Virtuos brings to the Nintendo Switch this summer and of course beyond. What game would you like to see Virtuos port to the Nintendo Switch? Let me know in the comments down below. Alright, so that is going to do it for today's video. We had a wide variety of topics, multi-platform stuff, you know, PlayStation 5 stuff, Switch stuff. Like, this should be a video that everyone loves. So let me know in the comments section down below what you think of all of the news. And of course, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.